Goodness gracious, has it been a hot minute since I've done one of these. I hope I remember how to do this right. But what's up, y'all? My name is Kaylee, in case you forgot. I am your host of Clearly Focused. For this episode back, because it has been a while, I kind of just wanted to recap last year and what happened and just let you know that I'm back. I also kind of ramble a bit about mental health, kind of want to ramble a little bit about mental health and the reality of being a full-time small business owner, because we all know the love and the struggle that we all experience for that. So stick around if you want to get down to the nitty-gritty with me. But before we get into that, you know we got to do our 30 seconds of silence. But this year, we're going to switch it up because I know that it's hard to sit in silence. It makes people feel really uncomfortable sometimes. And most of you probably honestly just tap the fast forward button twice and be like, boop, boop, and just skip to the next part to like get to the meat of the episode. But this year I figured instead of just leaving you hanging, I'm going to give you a sort of directive to be thinking about during that time. I don't know if you've ever meditated or taken a meditation class, but sometimes they have a guided meditation. So I won't be guiding you through the whole 30 seconds because it is only 30 seconds. But I will be kind of giving you like a little activity for your brain to think of. Sorry, I don't know why I was blanking on that word. But that way your brain has a task to focus on instead of just letting it roam all over the place. So we're gonna try something new and stick around for the 30 seconds, even if you normally just fast forward through it, because it's good for you, I promise. And you'll understand the more that you do it, like how easy it is and how much you get out of it, especially if you can start lengthening that time to be more than 30 seconds. But for the next 30 seconds, I just want you to think about when you feel the most peaceful. Focus on things that you do in your business currently that you feel really confident in. Remind yourself that you are strong and you are capable, and no matter how much money you make or how many bookings you have, you're still a successful photographer. You are meant to be where you are, successful small business owner. And I just want you to remind yourself of that. And I'll see you on the other side of our break. Welcome back, friends. So as I said, it's been a really long time since we last chatted, and I want to be upfront with y'all and admit that I just did not have the mental capacity to record podcasts last fall. My schedule was slammed, and whose isn't that time of year, let's be real, but I just didn't give myself enough time and set aside for recording podcasts. It made me really sad, honestly, because I really enjoy this and I really missed it. And then my schedule started kind of dying down in November, and I was really starting to plan more episodes for you guys. I had a whole in the bank, like a whole bunch in the bank ready to go for you with some fresh episodes, and I had only missed a few weeks at that point, so I was like, oh, I got this, it's totally fine. But truth be told, I had some things going on behind the scenes in the business that just kind of stole my podcasting time away from me. And as you know, I do this on my own. I plan the episodes, I plan the guests and contact them and get everything set up for, send them their questionnaire, get their pictures, like kind of talk to them about what we're going to talk about and when we're going to do it. I record the shows, I edit the shows, I schedule them out, I write all of the descriptions with the links, I create graphics for each episode, I post when they release, I talk about it on my Instagram stories and say, hey, go check out the new episode. I do it all. And I do it for free, and I do it for you, and I do it for me too, honestly, because I really do enjoy this. I love being able to share what I've learned with you guys. But I was having some issues with my assistant at the time, and I ended up letting her go. But a lot of what she was doing for me, I had to take on basically. So I was doing more work. I mean, that was why I hired an assistant in the first place, was because I just had too much on my plate and I was outsourcing some of it that I could outsource. And she did help me a little bit with the podcast, maybe like the production of it and stuff like that too, but not a whole lot of the planning side of it, but kind of the post side of it. But she did a lot of other things for me too. So once I let her go, I had to take all that stuff on my plate and something had to go. And unfortunately, that was just the podcast. I needed to focus on serving my clients first, being a photographer first, because you guys know that's what I do. I feel like I'm different in that sense of other photography educators out there. Is a lot of times once photographers start getting into the education, they stop doing a lot of photography. Like they'll do fun and creative sessions and it's really cool to see that, but they do a lot of education, whether it's courses or podcasts or, you know, whatever, conferences, stuff like that. But you don't really see them like in the industry, like I need inquiries in my inbox because they're now focusing their, you know, life on photography education instead of actual doing photography and staying as busy as they used to be in the photography industry. But that's not me. I do both. I love photography. That's why I started it. I can't give it up. I definitely have lessened a little bit of how much photography I do because I'm doing more education, but not as much as a lot of people. So because of that, I really just needed to put being a photographer first. I had clients to serve, I had photos to edit, I had weddings to shoot, I had sessions to shoot, I had to cull, I had to edit, and that was kind of my top priority, as it usually is. But because I had to take on some of the tasks that were designated to her for the past 2 years, I just couldn't handle it all because I've been so used to having help, and then I didn't. So like I said, that's exactly why I had an assistant in the first place, was because it was a lot for me to handle. So it was a stressful time and I felt really bad for abandoning y'all, but I just had to make sure my business survived first and foremost. And I'm sure you guys can understand that. So I could have worked overtime more than I already was, since again, like I said, I was taking on her tasks that she used to do for me too, just to make sure that I could get episodes out to you guys. But I really needed to protect my mental health, especially in such a busy season. If you guys know, when you have a busy season, whatever time of year that is for you, it's just insane with how much like, I also live super far away from everywhere I do sessions, so between the drag time, the shoot time, the culling time, the editing time, getting sneak peeks out, not missing deadlines, making sure I was communicating with all my clients and like not just, you know, having a message come in and not responding for like 3 days. I'm not that kind of person. So just kind of staying on top of that was top priority, and I really needed to protect my mental health outside of work. So if I gave up, I knew that if I gave up what little free time I had to do podcasts, I would burn out, and I don't want that for anyone. Not for me, but I don't want that for anyone, because then you guys wouldn't enjoy these episodes as well. So I say this all to you because it taught me a really important lesson. Well, lots of lessons actually, but mostly I walked out of this tough time glad that I know when and how to advocate for me and my business, for myself, my mental health. I had to not let what other people thought or what they would say or what they would think bother me. And it just got me thinking about how many other people don't know, or like don't know how to do this, or they can't do this for a multitude of reasons. Everybody has, you know, their strengths and their weaknesses, and sometimes people's weaknesses is just like, oh, well, what would people think of me if I stop doing this? I have to keep going. So I almost didn't want to say anything. I just kind of wanted to like pop back up and say hey and just keep going like nothing ever happened. But I felt called to tell you a little bit about it, because I know we all go through seasons like this where we're just drowning, and instead of saying wait or no or stop, we just keep saying yes, and we keep tumbling down this hill that we're on, and we let the snowball effect happen, and eventually we just feel like we're buried under an avalanche. And I was actually thinking about this morning, like how much we have to do, quote unquote, have to do in this world. Like, raise your hand if you feel like you are a failure if you don't wake up at 5 a.m. to get everything that you have to get done. We in this society, especially in America, we have been raised that if we're not working, we're failing. We're not going anywhere. We're just kind of stalling. And I don't agree with that at all, because sometimes I feel like there's a very much like an arc process especially in small businesses where, you know, you might be building momentum and kind of coming up that hill and working really, really hard. And then you kind of like reach a peak. You might be feeling good. Maybe you're slammed with work, and that's, you know, whatever that peak is like for you. And I feel like even there we kind of plateau. Even along the way we kind of plateau. It might not be a smooth arc. It's kind of like jagged, because there might be stalls along the way up and then stalls along the way down that you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm not really doing as much. I'm not really seeing as much come in, but that's okay because I'm gearing up for the next season, or I'm resting from the previous season, you know? So I think that's totally fine, but we in America and basically this society we've been raised, if we're not working, we're failing, and there's so much that we have to do in order to be a successful human being. We have to get a good night's rest. We have to move our bodies daily. We have to cook and eat good food for us. We have to keep the house clean. We have to work 40 hours a week or more and do it really well and achieve leaps and bounds each week. We have to read books. We have to do the laundry. We have to have social time with our friends. We have to have social time with our families, quality time with our family. We have to have some sort of hobby. Like, good gracious, that's not even including like kids. Like if you're chaperoning kids and shuffling kids from like place to place and activity to activity that they're doing. My blood pressure just rose like listing all of those things up. I don't know if yours did, but mine did. And it's just absolutely insane to think about how much we're supposed to do and somehow still take care of our mental health. Like go to the doctor, you know, go to the dentist, run errands, go to the grocery store, walk the dog, like make sure the dog goes to the dog park. Like, you know, there's just all these little things that just pop up that you're like, if you find yourself slacking on any of those things, like, oh man, the house hasn't been cleaned in a couple weeks, like, or at least deep cleaned in a couple weeks, like looks pretty shabby, or like, oh, the dog hasn't gone on a walk today, he's looking at me with those sad eyes. And then you instantly feel like you're not doing enough. You instantly feel guilty. And when I get overwhelmed like that, I just have to remind myself that the 40-hour work week was designed when there was only one person working that 40 hours a week, and the other person was staying home, taking care of the house, running the errands, doing the meal prepping, like cleaning the house. Like their job was kind of like the homemaking, and the other person's job was like bringing in the income. So times are not like that anymore. It's just not feasible to live like that. Like, unless you're one person who's working is like making millions and millions of dollars. Like most people nowadays are on a two income household. Wow, words mixing up. Because it's just the way of the world. Life is freaking expensive. And especially if you're wanting to like travel or save for a house renovation or like just have a savings, like you have to be working, or at least another person has to be working, even part-time, to be able to help supplement some of that income. So just remind yourself that times have changed and our expectations have changed and things should be different. So this is kind of what helps me, like remembering that, to start crossing things off my list that aren't as important, or at least things that should come last on the totem pole. So if I have the time, and I truly actually have the energy, then I can get to those things. But if I don't, then I'm gonna allow myself grace, because I'm only one human. I'm running a small business by myself, and there's just so much. It's a lot to do that just in and of itself, and like being a human in and of itself is a lot of things to do. Doing both of those things together is a lot of things. It's not like you just show up at a 9 to 5 and have someone tell you what to do all day. As a small business owner, your whole day is consumed with like making decisions. Do I take this job? Do I not take this job? Should I work on this project or this project? Do I need to get this editing? Do I need to get this editing done, or should I start calling this wedding first? Like you are the one who's sitting there trying to decide your schedule every single day, and that's super overwhelming. And I suffer from, I suffer from decision fatigue because I literally am so tired of making decisions. I'm just like, I don't know, I can't even think about what I want for dinner. It's hard to do that and do it every day, all day, even on the weekends, because even if you're not working on the weekends, your brain's still going. Like even like last night I was laying in bed being like, okay, I'm gonna do this tomorrow and this tomorrow. If I don't do that tomorrow, then I'll do this tomorrow. And if I don't do that, then that's okay. I'll just do something else. Or maybe I can get up a little bit earlier and do, no. You probably are all resonating with me right now, and also probably laughing at me, because this probably sounds like the inside of your brain too. But for me, it truly helps to actually write down each and every task that I want to accomplish, like literally everything, even the smallest things. And then I kind of rewrite that list in order from most important to least important. And by the time I do that, like as I'm rewriting that list, I can already just be like, oh, never mind, that's not important. Like, or like, oh, actually I don't have to get this done today. I can do it a different day. Or like, hey, I can actually send this to somebody else and I don't have to do it. So mentally, basically, I'm preparing myself when I'm writing this list that like, this is an incredibly long list, Kaylee. You are not going to be able to get all of these things done in one day. You are one human being. There's only 24 hours a day. You cannot make more hours in the day. This stuff will take longer than that. And that's just, you gotta drill that in your brain sometimes. It's okay. But like I said, sometimes I just realize as I'm rewriting it that I'm like, wait, why was this even on my list for today? Or like, did that really have to get done today? Or like, I'll look at my calendar and say, oh, you know, I actually have some time tomorrow in between this, or, you know, I didn't realize my whole Thursday was open. Let's just move it to that day instead of trying to stress it and squeeze it in on this day. And that's just, it does better. I feel like it might be a little overwhelming at first to see all those little tasks on a paper staring at you. You might get a little stressed out, but honestly, the more I do it, the more I can work through it and like really decide what's important for me today. So I actually had an episode all about saying no, and I'm sure this episode goes hand in hand with that one. I'm gonna link it in the show notes so you guys can listen to it if you haven't already, or maybe you want to re-listen to it. But like, when did we become such people pleasers? That's what I want to know. When did, like, believe me, I am guilty as F when it comes to wanting everyone to like me and wanting everyone to love me and be happy and like me. But I just wonder when this became a thing, because we put so much stress on ourselves to make others happy, and then we end up not making ourselves happy. We end up pushing aside what we want and our desires and our mental health in order to put someone else first. And what can happen when we do that is we can burn out. And now listen, I know this is something you heard. You were probably sick of hearing that word. I know I'm sick of hearing that word. Maybe we should come up with like a different word as in this society, because burnout is starting to almost like lose its effect. If that makes sense. I feel like it's been talked about widely for the last 2 or 3 years at least. That now it's almost kind of just being like, oh, burnout, like in one ear out the other. Like, I'm so freaking tired of hearing this word. But like, honestly, when you get to that point, sometimes you experience that burnout syndrome, burnout, whatever, you know? And you've probably experienced this at least once. Like I said, it's pretty common, but man, how much does it suck for you to hang out with a friend because you said you would, and mentally you're tapped. You have literally nothing to offer them. You're at zero. Your battery is at like 2%. Like, you are lucky to just be eyes open sitting next to them, like at a park bench with a coffee in your hand. Like, you're like, okay, I made it, I'm here. But you are not able to be there for them, to help them, to give them advice, to celebrate with them, like whatever it is that they need, because you've drained your cup. Like, I always walk away from situations like that and I feel like utter, like, complete shit. And which makes me feel worse, and thus just starts repeating that process, that vicious cycle, because it's just all linked together. But in comparison, how great does it feel to show up and hang out with your friend and you're able to be fully present, well rested, ready to give them what they need? I walk away from that scenario feeling on top of the world. Like, I can go out there and help every other person in the world who needs help. You know? Not really, because that would be just as draining. But like, no, really, it just feels so much better if you do it that way. Even if that scenario had to start out, or like if you had to achieve that scenario by sending them a text saying, hey, I'm sorry to reschedule, but I really need to take a minute and breathe before we meet up. It's been a hectic week and I want to be there for you 100% when we hang out, because I care for you and I love you and I don't want to waste your time. Can we look at the next day or the next week? It can be really scary when you send messages like that, but especially like sticking up for ourselves and like knowing if we have to put our business first or put our family first because we've been putting our business first, that other things have to fall off the calendar or fall off the to-do list. 9 times out of 10, it honestly ends up working out for us. Like, it sucks that you don't get to hang out with your friend, or it sucks that you had to do the laundry so you couldn't take the dog for a walk, or whatever. But you know what? The next day, you can take your dog for a walk instead of doing something else. Like, you can make up for those things as the week goes on, just adjusting your to-do list, because you'll remember those things that you quote unquote feel guilty about for not doing or having to push back. and you can do them the next day. Just make that your top priority for the next day. Just because you're not doing it today doesn't mean it's never going to get done, you know? But 9 times out of 10, when you stick up for yourself and you send those messages that you're scared to send, it works out. I can't tell you how many messages I've sent and the other person ends up responding like, yeah, that actually works better for me. Or like, OMG, I was going to say the same thing. But someone had to be the person to be brave enough to take that first step and admit the truth. So yeah, friends, like I said, this is going to be a short episode. I just kind of wanted to jump on here and talk about where I've been, and I can give you a little bit of recap of 2023. Oh my God, I almost said 2024. 2024 is not over yet. Not a whole lot of other crazy stuff happened, like good or bad, thankfully. It was just a very busy season with sessions and weddings. I still am doing my weekly email blast to go out to my email list and give you guys kind of updates on like what I do week to week. Sometimes you get sneak peeks into projects that I'm working on, and you guys are like the first to know about any like announcements or anything like that I'm having. 2024 is going to be good, and I'm going to be here for you guys, I promise. So I apologize for disappearing on you, but I'm back and I'm very inspired because I took a step back and I knew that I needed to, you know, put the podcast on the back burner for a second. So now I'm very inspired and excited for what's in store in 2024. So until next time.